Hello, Shannon Flummerfeld here for Flip Schools. Welcome to the Sustaining Improvement series. This is one of 5 videos designed for faculty to introduce faculty to an improvement concept called the 5S and Leader Standard Work. If you haven't listened to the other videos in this series, you might want to do so, but feel free to jump in with this one, and you can also go back and listen to those at your leisure. Let's start with a few definitions here first of all, and an understanding of why they're important. As a classroom teacher, you are responsible for so many things, and your time is so very precious. And for those faculty who are, working very, very hard, whatever we can do to make sure that they can focus on things that really matter is fundamentally what needs to happen. And so I've introduced to you an improvement tool called the 5S, and this tool can help you as a classroom teacher to be able to figure out what matters and what doesn't in terms of instruction or assessment or anything else related to the work that you do. And the 5S is simply a visual management tool, and you can use it with other people. In fact, that's the best way for it to be used. So either, with your students in your classrooms, or any other stakeholders you deal with. I'm sure you have faculty that you work with on school improvement issues and so on. So 5S is a good tool to use in those kinds of settings as well. But what you're trying to do is develop and maintain improvement. And this is important because you have a lot of ideas that are probably coming out of your flipped classroom, a lot of new innovations, large innovations and small improvements and so on. And all of that can get to be a little bit overwhelming. So you need to be able to understand what makes sense, what you can actually use and use well based on best practice, and to be able to sustain that. So the 5S will take you through a process of being able to sort all that out, set it into categories, try it out, shine it up, get to best practice, standardize it, and then sustain it. And we've looked at an example in the other videos of using this 5S process to drive some improvement in mathematics instruction. Now, an accompanying concept to the 5S tool is this idea called Leader Standard Work. And Leader Standard Work is very interesting because when you begin to understand what it does for you in the classroom as a faculty member, it can actually help you to really fully engage as a facilitator of your students' learning. Leader Standard Work is a leadership method where you are responsible as the faculty member for modeling things that focus on making sure that the processes of learning and teaching are all working well, and that secondly, results follow. And that will all happen after a 5S engagement occurs. So what you're looking for in Leader Standard Work is for you to be able to share with your students or colleagues, look, we need to make sure the process works well. So whether, you're talking about delivering math instruction or selecting a textbook or figuring out if you're going to use smart boards in your classroom, whatever the issue is, you want to make sure that the process of work that occurs is in good shape. Because if that is fundamentally flawed, your results won't be that good. But if you can improve the process through 5S, your results will follow. And that's what Leader Standard Work wants to do, is to make sure that you're paying attention to that work process that you've improved through 5S, and that the results follow. And so what you look for in Leader Standard Work, for example, would be something like some kind of a demonstration that you have a long-term commitment to sustaining mathematics instruction improvements that have occurred, for instance. That would just be one example. And so, as we've looked at in the other videos, you've seen there we've worked through this 5S protocol where you sort things out, what matters, what are we going to focus on, set your work into categories, then from there, derive what you want to do, find the problem, solve it, and shine up the process so it's working well, standardize it, and then finally sustain it. Once you've done that, that will lead to Leader Standard Work. And what you're looking for now in Leader Standard Work is a way to again, demonstrate this long-term commitment to what has already been put through the 5S process. And so you're kind of looking all the time to see what things are happening here in this environment. And some things you want to look for are, are the structures that I have in place in my classroom, whether it's the way that learning centers take place, whether it is, how students find their seats, whether it's the way that homework, is done, whatever structure you have, does that actually enable and create opportunities for value-added work to flow from that? And if that does happen, if that is in place, then certainly the results will follow. So structures should enable value-added work. If there are barriers to that, then you need to change that. And the next thing is that people are engagers of value-added work. Because this is called leader-standard work, sometimes people think, leaders are the ones who stand up in front and tell everybody what to do and how to do it. Well, leader-standard work is different than that concept. And as a facilitator of your students' learning, you're going to want to engage the students not only in the acquisition of content, but in an understanding of the process of learning that they're working on. So they can be the engagers of value-added work. They can help you to understand, look, this was a barrier for me, or this created value for me to learn this way, or to do my homework this way, or to work with a study partner, or to have this kind of peer teaching, whatever might be going on in your classroom. So think about that, you're not going to be the one who has to come in with all the solutions, but rather you're facilitating this process where people can engage with each other to create value-added work. Also that there are internal forces that can be tapped into and used as envoys of value-added work. If you have parent volunteers in your classroom, if you have a student who has a special area of expertise, if you happen to have a small grant where you're able to have some additional resources, if you happen to be extremely creative, or you have a real cooperative group of students, these are all internal forces that you can think about and try to capture the value that's there so that they become envoys of value-added work. And so look for those things around you. Again, the model here is that you're not doing everything, but rather you're facilitating processes that help the work to get done. An emphasis on process first, results second. And the last thing is that practices are enforcers of value-added work. So whatever is actually done in your classroom is a practice, and that enforces what is value-added. If you have a practice that creates a barrier for students, and you need to take a look at that and try to get rid of that and change it and improve it. So what does leader-standard work actually look like? Well, there are several things that you can do. For instance, one of the things we've been talking about in some of these videos here is the power of visual management. You can create a data wall and put up there some kind of a goal or objective that your students are trying to accomplish, for instance, collectively. That would be called a shared measure of performance. So put that up and track it, and let's see what's going on with that. Again, you're looking here, and as you see that, we're making progress, there has to be some kind of discussion about the process that's being used to get this work done, and then you see the results in visual management. Also, another great way to engage in leader-standard work is to be right where the work takes place. Not at an arm's distance. If you set up a learning activity center in your classroom, you need to go there and observe, what are my students doing in this? If you tell your students to work together in peer teams, you need to go around and observe. Go to what we call Gemba, the real place, and look and see what is it that they're talking about. And what you'll do then is you'll have opportunities to go ahead and lead and help, because you'll be there facilitating what happens. Should always be done with respect and a coaching approach, not to put people down or to catch people doing things wrong. Again, we're trying to really focus on process improvement to get to good results. Another thing that leader-standard work can look like is where you make sure that, you're right there just in time. When an intervention is needed, maybe there's a change in paradigm that's needed, or maybe there's a practice that a student is engaging in that needs to be attended to, or a process that is happening in the classroom that needs to be improved. Just-in-time interventions are great. You know, you just sort of say, wait, everyone stop, we're just going to look at this. Let's fix this right now. And, you know, to go along with that, the idea that there's high-level and frequent communication. So if something gets fixed, you know, you need to talk about it. Look, remember yesterday we fixed this problem. Here's what we're going to do about this today in the classroom. Let's make sure you remember that, and so on. And keep that going all the time. And also that the idea that with Leader Standard work, you get into this idea that, you know, it's very much based on people being engaged. So you start to see teamwork developing, and the more high-performing and cross-functional it can be, the better off things will be in your classroom. So, you know, when you have students working on different projects, you know, again, instead of maybe emphasizing them competing against each other, let's see, you know, what are each of these teams doing? What can we learn from each other in terms of how they did their work? How did they complete their project, and what results did they get? That type of dynamic can go a long way in terms of adding to Leader Standard work. So again, this demonstrates your commitment to sustaining improvements that have been put in place. In the flipped classroom, there's so many things that you can do that are just fun and new and exciting and challenging. I hope that this video series will help you with your work in the flipped classroom, either understanding flipped technology more, or improvement, or both. So if you want more information, go to the Flip Institute website. Just put in theflipinstitute.com. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and thanks for listening.